Would have been a pretty tough show had the Golden State Warriors blown a 24-point lead in Minnesota. Fortunately, they did not blow that lead. Minnesota crept all the way back into it, but down the stretch, Steph Curry has another flurry, but he healed. Do we owe him an apology after the way he played? Let's just discuss a Warriors win that wasn't great, but hey, it's a good win.
Who can stop Steph Curry?
Hopefully we'll never find out.
There's not many defenses in the world that can stop him.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, howdy. What is the good word, everyone? Welcome into Locked On Warriors, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We stream live after the games on YouTube. You can also check out the show wherever you get your audio podcast. Free and available, YouTube audio podcast. We are here for you. My name's Charlie Walter, formerly at 95.7 The Game in the Bay Area. That is the flagship station where you can hear all the Golden State Warriors games. Also covered the team for CBS News Bay Area. Matt Kolsky worked at 95.7 The Game. He joins me today. Also covered the team for KNBR. Warriors get the job done, 116-115 over the Minnesota Timberwolves. This was a first quarter where the Warriors raced out to a 34-12 lead. They were dominating the Minnesota Timberwolves. For most of the game, they had the lead. In fact, we could go back to the very beginning, and I don't know if Minnesota had seconds of leads in this one. You'll know better than me, but let's start with the ending of the game before we break it down in a nutshell. It was the Dante DiVincenzo show for the Minnesota Timberwolves. How the Warriors let him and Poole walk the same summer, I do not know. DiVincenzo was great. 28 points on 9 of 19 shooting, 6 of 12 from 3. But guess what? Dante, guess what, Dante? Anything you can do, I can do better, says Steph Curry. Forget the 28. Curry leads all scorers with 31. He goes 10 of 21 from the floor, 7 of 12 from 3. A very hot start from Curry, kind of, festered a little bit in the middle, didn't do a ton there. And then down the stretch, it was Curry buckets. It was Curry free throws, 8 points in the final 2.5 minutes. Warriors get the win. What stands out and is your overall takeaway from this W?
I think the biggest takeaway is just, look, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that there weren't some nervy moments down the stretch, but as many, clutch games as there have been,
25 now.
They've kicked a lot of them away. And this one, in the couple of big moments they needed to make sure they secured the victory, they got the job done. Now, you wish Gary Payton didn't throw that pass to Moses Moody. That was insane. You wish it didn't require rebounding your own missed free throw to get it done, but they did. And as shorthanded as they are against the team that was playing really well, it's a really good win. And here's the thing, maybe this is my biggest takeaway. The Warriors are not playing their best basketball. Any idiot can see that. They're also very hurt, haven't totally had a chance to work in all of the pieces they currently have together at the same time. And right now, at 20-20, they sit 2 games out of the 5 seed.
Crazy.
2 games out of the 5 seed. Now, we talked about this at the beginning of the year. I think it might be like that, 2 games separating 10 and 5 all year long. But staying at 500 is important, because if you start to lose touch on the wrong side of 500, if tonight had turned it into a loss and then you're 2 games under, and, by next week, by the time Kuminga gets back in 10 days or whatever it is, you're 4 games under 500. That's where you start to slip out of it. If they can continue to stay at, around, and slightly above 500, they're going to be in it. And the question is, can you get your pieces back and get this group to a place where they are playing playoff level basketball in March and April, getting ready for those playoffs? Because we saw it again tonight. Steph Curry is a superstar you can still bank on, and there's no reason to think it would be different in the playoffs. All you have to be able to do is get him to the ends of games, and then he'll win some for you. So can they get this team to a place to do that, where they can actually compete in a playoff series or two? I still think it's very much on the table. And when you see a win like tonight, I think it gives you a little more hope.
This was one of those games that heading in, you had to figure that Minnesota had the big time upper edge. I mean, the spread in the game was Minnesota minus 6.5, and there's a reason why. Draymond Green once again out, Brandon Bajimski out, Jonathan Kuminga out, Kyle Anderson out. So you're missing size. You're missing Kuminga, Anderson, Draymond Green against a team that, what do they have? If Minnesota has anything, it's always size. Now they lost Towns and traded him out with the burly Julius Randle, but they're still a huge basketball team. However, the Warriors haven't really struggled with the Wolves despite the lack of size this season. Golden State has consistently played pretty well against Minnesota, so you will absolutely take the win. Through the box score, Buddy Hield was great. He had 18 points, 6 of 11 shooting, 3 of 6 from deep. They actually had a set play for Buddy in the final minutes, got fouled on that three-point play, and then Stones at the charity stripe, knocking down all 3. So 18 from Buddy. Moses Moody had a pretty solid game off the bench, despite a blunder between him and Gary Payton with 16 seconds left, where they turned the ball over up 3. And this was, 30 seconds after Minnesota was gifted a clean back cut. Jade McDaniels right to the bucket, lays it up and in. Those 2 plays were making me pull out my hair. I was like, they're going to do this again, aren't they?
And it's that sentiment that I think makes this such a huge win, right? Every single Warriors fan was thinking that again.
Absolutely.
And the fact that it didn't happen again is big, even if there were some bumps along the way. I give that turnover to Gary Payton, even though Moses Moody is going to get credit for it in all likelihood. That's just a brutal spot. To wait until the last absolute moment and then throw him the ball as he's tiptoeing the end line is just brutal. I think Buddy Hield and Wiggins hitting free throws.
10 of 12 from the stripe was Wiggins. The team as a whole, 18 of 21. The shooting as a whole, 48%, 50% from 3, and 85% from the charity stripe. This team doesn't make any sense, man. They're Jekyll and Hyde. They're either ice cold or they're freaking 50%. There's nothing in between.
Yeah, that's frustrating. You wish they could find some consistency rather than the ebbs and flows. But I will say tonight, this feels insane to say, given like what the NBA was until Steph Curry existed. But 46 2s to 36 3s is a distribution that I can live with, even if they don't shoot 50% from 3-point range. And I felt like from the beginning tonight, there was visible intention to get into the lane. And a lot of those threes came off of dribble penetration, kicking it out to an open shooter, and someone shooting in rhythm. Moses Moody is one of the great test cases for that, because he's really a much, much, much better shooter. In rhythm, you feel like he shoots it about as well as anybody on the team except Steph. Out of rhythm, he's pretty trash shooting the ball. So, like, when you see him knocking down his threes, when you see Buddy, a lot of that is because of the way those threes are generated. And tonight just looks so much better from the very beginning in terms of a team that seemed to desire to break the paint. I think that's partially why it's so frustrating that they stopped doing that in the fourth quarter when they give up these leads.
Coming up on the show, I want to ask Polsky a question. Is this team closer to the lottery, or are they closer to that 5 seed? They're 20-20 right now, right down the middle, and it could go one of either way. It could be like, hey, they could be Team 10 that has a 3% chance of getting that ping pong ball and capturing the flag, or they could win a couple games and they could, they're probably not going to get home court advantage in the first round of the playoffs, but they could be a 5 seed. They could have the 5-4 matchup. Like, with all that has gone down and the words rock bottom being thrown around, if rock bottom is 2.5 games out of the playoffs, the Warriors franchise has come a very long way. No doubt about that. But let's keep things in perspective. This season is not done yet. And just when you thought this current version, minus Kuminga and minus Draymond Green, was anemic after they had lost to the Raptors, they come back today and they get a big-time win. Also, the Phoenix Suns mortgaging more of their future for Nick Richards. Hey, they're going after a big, but it could backfire. Let's discuss all this on Locked On Warriors.
Forget that. We champs. Why are you starting with that question? We got 4 championships.
All right, when it comes to grocery shopping and meal planning, I've had this ongoing problem. Kolsky has it too. We just do not have time, although Kolsky's a gardener, so he makes the tomatoes in his backyard. But between work, life, and trying to eat healthier, I was constantly feeling stressed out. I'd go to the grocery store. I'd buy things I didn't need. I'd walk in my front door with 5 boxes of fruit by the foots. No, I got to stick to my health goals. Everything changed when I discovered Hungryroot. Honestly, it's a game changer and helps me eat healthy without all the stress. It's like having a personal shopper and a nutritionist all in one. You're going to love Hungryroot as much as I do. For a limited time, get 40% off your first box and a free item in every box for life. And yes, they do pertain to your health goals. You can get high protein. You can get gluten-free options. It's based on your tastes and on your health goals. And you get that free item in every box for life. Hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA. Use code LockedOnNBA. Hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life. Hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA. Code LockedOnNBA. Do not miss out.
Who cares how I feel? It's about winning basketball games.
All right, what do you want to start with here, Kolsky? I'll give you dealer's choice. We can get into – actually, you know what? I'm not going to give you dealer's choice. Let's just get right into the Warriors shooting in the game today. You said you really liked some of their shot selection. What did you think down the stretch with some of those set plays that they had? The Curry three-pointers, I thought it was a thing of beauty. But again, it brings up the question – whenever the Warriors are up 4, they're up 5 late in these games, they're always going to that three-point shot. And then you see on the other side, the backdoor cut coming into play with the Minnesota Timberwolves. Look, Curry's a 40% three-point shooter. It's a very high percentage shot for the amount of points you're getting. But when you have the lead late in the games, you're 60% close to the bucket. I mean, the odds go up the closer you get, and they don't even attempt to get inside the three-point line. It didn't bite him in the ass today, but it has a lot this season. That's why I bring it up.
Well, interestingly enough, I think on the go-ahead 3, they did get some penetration. I mean,
that was where Peyton kicked it out, yeah.
So, again, the problem is not that it's threes late in games. The problem is which threes, to me anyway. And too many of their possessions late in the game devolve into sort of useless passes back and forth around the perimeter, and then either Steph Curry or, God forbid, Andrew Wiggins going one-on-one in the last 5 seconds of the shot clock. Or one of those guys, and it's usually Steph in this case, dribbling and dribbling, trying to find an opening until he takes a tough shot, because it's the best one he feels like he can get. Now, I give Steph Curry a little bit of leeway here because, A, he's Steph Curry, but B, also, he's in a spot right now where his team has been showing him they need him to do that. And I'll live with him forcing a couple shots late because more often than not, he's going to give you what you need down the stretch. But I'm talking all the way from 8-9 minutes, most of the fourth quarter. The shot selection that was one of the best parts of the first 3 quarters was not the same. And I think part of that is an element of there's a mental element of there've been so many tough stretches. And when I say stretches, I mean like final stretches in the course of the season that everyone's a little nervy in those moments. And some of it, I think, is just a loss of focus and attention to detail. And I think sometimes this team can take for granted a poise under pressure that the 2024-25 Warriors have not earned. Now, the franchise has earned it over the last decade, and that's where it's a little tricky, right? And I think that's been something the last couple of years, really, is they earned this late game calm over the course of the dynasty because they were really good in late games, and they have Steph Curry, and for most of that, Klay Thompson, and some of it, Kevin Durant. But this team hasn't earned that level of casual confidence. And I just think that the late game, so often it has been execution down the stretch that has suffered, which to me is just, are you locked in enough? And I think the answer has been no too many times. So, it wasn't perfect tonight, but they did finish, and that's what matters.
And not only did they finish, but they started. They held Minnesota, a really good offensive team, to 12 first quarter points. That's where the game was broken open. Curry had 4 3-pointers before fans had a chance to get their popcorn in Minnesota. It was, 18 points right out of the gate and a 22-point first quarter lead. But after the Warriors gave up 12, it was 30 in the second quarter. It was 36 in the third quarter. It was 37 in the fourth quarter. So it's really hard to point to their defense, but they did get the stops when they needed. So give them the credit there. But I want to talk lottery team or 5th seed in the NBA playoffs. Warriors right now are right split in the middle of those two, like right there. If the season were to end today, I think they would have a 3% chance of getting that ping pong ball. Obviously, the lottery, the 14 teams that miss the playoffs, the odds go down. The top 3 teams or the worst 3 teams have a 14% chance, while, team 14, aka the Warriors last year, has a 0.5% chance of getting that ping pong ball pick. And this is huge because this is a big time draft for the Warriors, and you honestly want a direction one way or the other. You don't want them to be, team 14. At the end of the day, like, either make a push or, figure it out and be team 10 and have a 4% chance of landing Cooper Flag. But right now, let's ask you that, because they're hurt. They're going to be hurt for a few more games, it would seem, although the boot is off for Jonathan Kuminga. What are the Warriors trending towards right now, in your opinion, with the way they've been playing? Are they trending towards ping pong balls? Or are they trending towards a 5-4 matchup or 6-3?
Yeah. I still believe in so many parts of this team that it's hard for me to envision ping pong balls.
Why do you, though?
Because I've seen it a lot before, and because I like a lot of the players, really, is what it comes down to. And I mean that from a basketball perspective, not just that I enjoy them as humans. Here is the upcoming run of games: Washington, Boston, Sacramento, Chicago, Lakers, Utah, then OKC, Phoenix, Orlando, Utah, LA, Bulls again. So you get the Lakers twice, the Bulls twice, Washington, Utah twice, all leading up to the trade deadline, basically. That's just got to be an over 500 stretch. It just has to be. That next, 8 or 10 games? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's delightful radio. 10 games. 6-4 is a bare minimum for me. I'd like to see 7-3, but more than anything, you just got to get some good feeling back around this team. They're not a championship contender currently. That's clear. But they are better than they've been playing. They certainly are. And part of that is health, but part of that is just playing better.
Look,
so
25
they've got to be playing better.
25 clutch games. That's the key number right there. Like, when you're playing in 25 clutch games, that's a statistic that says you're competitive, right?
Right. the problem is too many of those games have started, featured a large Warrior lead before ending up as clutch games, and too many of them have gone the wrong way. That being said, you're right. That tells you, like, this team is a few kicks of the basketball on their own part away from being the 5th seed right now, So I still think that's who they are. But ultimately, they're going to have to get healthy, and they're just going to have to find the identity of this roster, and I guess that's hard to do until the trade deadline happens. But boy, I just think you got to figure out who you are and how the pieces fit together. And that has been hard to do to this point based on a variety of factors. Right now, injuries.
Amen. With the stretch coming up, I heard Utah's name in there a couple times.
Twice.
Yeah.
You can beat these teams. The Lakers are they're the aforementioned 5th seed right now, but they're no great shakes. That's a beatable basketball team. The Bulls stink. They're twice in the next 12 games.
And we could be seeing our future Warrior Vucevic. It could be a little tryout. I mean, that appears to be the only move that could still potentially be on the table. Although Slater on 95.7 basically said that if firsts are attached to it, then the Warriors probably aren't going to do that. They may be staying put, folks. I know everyone wants a trade to happen, but they could be staying put here, it sounds like.
They absolutely can stand pat. That's certainly an option. I don't think it's reasonable for anyone to say with any certainty that any team is not going to do something a month out from the trade deadline, because weird stuff happens, man. And all it takes is one player doing one weird thing for a firestorm to start. That being said, there's no obvious moves. The Vucevic has been thrown around a lot, and he's clearly been available for about a year and a half, but there are reasons that no one has made that move, and I don't think the Warriors fancy it as a significant one for them, nor would I. But you can't tell me there's no chance Miles Turner becomes available, or, someone else gets disgruntled and asks out of their current situation. There are still longer shot possibilities. But yeah, I think getting used to what you're seeing and hoping you get the rest of your team healthy is probably the best path to happiness for Warriors and their fans.
I want to talk a little about the Phoenix Suns, because they did something that I think a lot of Warriors fans would like Golden State to do, and that's get some size on their team. It costed them a lot, and it's costed them a lot to have a team right now that is below the Golden State Warriors in the standings. Wait until I compare the Warriors draft capital moving forward with the depleted Phoenix Suns draft capital. And you can say whatever you want about Dunleavy and the front office and the entire company that takes care of this thing. But hey, the future is not nearly depleted like Phoenix's. Let's discuss. That's coming up here on Locked On Warriors.
Who can stop Steph Curry?
Hopefully we'll never find out.
All right, after the holiday hustle, there is nothing like giving your home a little TLC. I always find that decluttering and refreshing my space helps me get back into routine. And whether you're tidying up, clearing out, or just want to give your space a new look to start the year, WayFair has everything you need, all within your budget. Currently looking for furniture, and they have a huge selection that makes it easy. It makes it easy to find your style and to find your budget. The free and hassle-free delivery, even for the larger items, is very, very nice. There's something for every style and every home, and they make it easy. So give your home the refresh it needs with WayFair. Head to wayfair.com right now. That is WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home.
I don't give a damn about no damn Drake night.
All right, so if you're late to the party, the Phoenix Suns landed Nick Richards, the former Kentucky Wildcat. He's 6'11", very good shot blocker, rim protector, has a little bit of an outside game, developed that in college, and is showing it off from time to time in the NBA. Now, Charlotte Hornets fans say he's soft. They just said watch a full season of Nick Richards, and you will not think he's the answer to your team. But hey, the Suns went out and they got him. Averages like 9 a game. A fully irresponsible trade, but they do not give a damn. The Suns give up, 3 second-round draft picks in the process. Not great stuff there, and did they add a Kogi? Who did they add to the mix?
They had to give up a Kogi, who, if Warrior fans remember the Phoenix games, like he can make an impact. He's at least a legitimate NBA perimeter defender.
Yeah, he's young talent, and they give him up, and they give up the 3 seconds. So this is what their draft capital looks like. This is their draft capital over the next 6 years. The Phoenix Suns have a second-round pick in 2026, and then they have to wait until 2031 until they have a draft pick. And obviously they can make some trades. They could, trade out Durant for some expiring deals and get some picks in the process, or whoever it may be. But it seems like the Suns are staying pat, and they are screwed when it comes to organically getting better. Meanwhile, the Golden State Warriors, they look pretty good. I mean, they have their 2025 first-round pick intact. They have their 2026 first-round pick and their second-round pick. They have a 2027 first-round pick, a 2028 first-round pick and second-round pick, their 2029 first-round pick. So you can look at this one of two ways. If crap hits the fan moving forward, the Warriors are in a pretty good position with all their picks to reload pretty quickly, or at least, add in some talent. Now, the draft, it can be a crapshoot. There are plenty of teams that have been drafting high for years and have not been able to figure it out for years. So the other way that you can look at this is moving forward. I'm not talking this year. I'm talking maybe next year, over the summer, next year's deadline, whatever it may be. Like, the Warriors have kept all their assets intact to where if they did have a flippable asset to attach a player, and a contract to attach with draft capital, it seems like they can get just about anyone. The issue is they really don't have anyone minus Jonathan Kuminga, and that's where we start our stance here. Jonathan Kuminga, what is going to happen with him? I don't think we've seen the last of Kuminga in a Golden State Warriors uniform, but you can't 100% rule that out because he is hurt right now and the deadline is coming up. The thing is, the Warriors have bird rights, a.k.a. they can match. If they want Jonathan Kuminga, they have the rights to get him if they shell out the money. But is there a price that a team would come in and pay to where the Warriors would potentially lose Kuminga, and then we'd look back at this situation like we looked back at Chris Paul and Klay Thompson and other moves in the past where it's just missed opportunities? Like, what's your take on that? You kind of just have to take the gamble? You just take the gamble and see what happens in the offseason?
When you say gamble, you mean the gamble is what? Not trading him?
The gamble is you're paying him whatever he wants because you're bringing him back.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the situation they've put themselves in.
You're not going to let him walk.
It's hard to imagine letting him walk for nothing because,
you could trade him.
Size of, well, you can always sign and trade. There are ways to sign and trade.
Yeah.
But there's also ways for other teams to make that hard for them. And that gives you a hard cap too, which is a difficult thing to navigate. The situation they put themselves in by not sort of coming up to his level financially last offseason is that they're probably going to have to reach, if not exceed, that level this offseason in order to hold on to him. And I think the smart money is, I shouldn't say smart money. I think the smart move for them is to try to do that before he goes on the open market, because somebody's going to offer it. Based on what we've seen, unless there's something disastrous in the second half of the season, somebody wants to pay that kid. Like, there's too much talent and too young and underutilized. Like, we haven't seen much, I grant you, but in some ways that makes it more tantalizing, I think what he's shown every time he has been given consistent playing time is enough for somebody to give him couple $100 million. So I don't know if the Warriors are going to have a better option than to pay him. Just like I don't think they have a better option. And this Nick Richards trade is a perfect example. Like,
what are the Suns doing? That's my question. Like, what are the Suns doing?
We don't have the time for that. But what they have done, practically speaking, is put themselves in a situation where they can't change the team anymore. Like, there's nothing without finding a destination for Bradley Beal, who has a no trade clause, or Kevin Durant, or God forbid for Suns fans, Devin Booker, because I know nobody wants to see that. Like, this is your team. And guess
They're out
what?
of the play-in.
They're
out of
not
the
good
play-in.
enough. Now, they're probably better than that. They've been hurt a lot. But also, the nature of this roster is, like, one of the big names is somewhat likely to be hurt at any given time. So you'd much rather be the Warriors than the Suns, if you ask me. Because even if they end up in the same place record-wise, like, there is some good feeling to what the Warriors have. You know, like, it's still Steph Curry and Draymond Green and Steve Kerr and Kevon Looney and dudes you've won titles with. Andrew Wiggins falls in that category, for God's sakes. There's a sentimental attachment that hasn't been destroyed. Like, the last Suns team that felt exciting and really good was the one with Mikal Bridges and company, right? Like, that was the exciting one. And DeAndre Ayton, for God's sakes, right? It was Chris Paul running point. They played in the finals. And it's been largely downhill from there, in part because they've just made every trade. And they're not better than they were. They're just way worse off for the future. And I think that's sort of the perfect example of what I would advocate the Warriors not do, and what Steve Kerr and Steph Curry have said they don't want to do, which is do stuff just because you feel like you want to or have to, that is not actually beneficial enough for the cost it will incur. And then you end up in the same spot in the standings, but a less worthwhile franchise, frankly. So
Let's keep this quick.
It's tough.
Let's keep this quick. Curry, Wiggins, Draymond, they're all on the same timeline right now. Their deals all expire at the same time. Yes, contract wise, they're riding off into the sunset together, at least on paper as of right now. What are the chances that actually happens? Because I do feel like something has to give. They have to pull the plug on something, and it's going to be a tough decision. But that's kind of what did McConaughey say? Sometimes in order to move forward, you actually got to go back. You know.
That sounds, I don't know when, but that does sound like something McConaughey would say. 50-50. We're just talking about them all three playing out their Warrior contracts, right? Because, I mean, Wiggins should continue to play. I mean, he'll be like 32 or 33 or something at that point. Like, I don't think his career will end then.
Feels like eventually, if they're not winning, they're going to shake things up some way, somehow. And if it's not Curry, then you look at the other two, because that's where a lot of their money is tied into, and that's where a lot of their lack of flexibility comes from. The issue is none of those three are really the problem. So we'll see. It's kind of the one day at a time approach as of right now. And if the Warriors keep winning and get back into this thing, who's to say that they won't make a move that gets them better around the All-Star break? And in Vooch, we talked about it. He's going to get you better. He's going to give you 20 and 10. But if the Bulls feel any sense of desperation from Golden State, you know they're going to – I told you that draft capital. I mean, I'll fire it back up there on the screen. Like, teams are looking at that, and they know that the Warriors have a 2025, a 2026, a 2027, a 2028 first-round pick.
If Vooch played defense, this is a totally different conversation. But then again, if that was the case, he probably would have been traded a long time ago. So, or the Bulls would want him. It's – again, there are no great answers on the market right now. I expect the Warriors to wait certainly till that last week before the deadline, if not a couple days before the deadline, to see if that changes. But if it doesn't, you know, we'll see. My expectation is they are not going to trade for Vucevic if it costs a first-round pick or a player they like.
There we go. Patience is a virtue. This is Locked On Warriors. You can check it out on YouTube or wherever you get your audio podcasts. For Matt Kolsky, Chuck Walter, peace, everyone.